Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. This time talking about one of the latest DVD releases, The Visitation. Now, I've got a soft spot for this story. It means a lot to me. There is a blog written somewhere, basically, which says that this was one of my pivotal moments of life where things changed for me. You see, I was often late for Scouts. I'd been a cub, it was perfectly good. I'd done lots of gang shows, I had an armful of badges, so many badges in fact, that I believe I still hold the record to this date for that particular group. The 8th Tynemouth. It was a small hut, somewhere off Chicken Road. I believe the hut's still there and I believe they still meet, but I was late. You see, Doctor Who had moved to a midweek slot, the same night that Scouts met. I would be there, dressed in my uniform, ready to go as soon as my beloved man in a blue box went. And as soon as the visitation finished, I ran down the hills, over the roads, and arrived late. After the initial inspection, I was only a couple of minutes late, but I was still late. The guy took me to one side and said, "You have to work out which is more important, Doctor Who or..." The rest of his sentence was lost. Because Doctor Who or anything really isn't going to come into it. I guess I was already a fan of the same calibre that I am these days. I just didn't know it. So, that was the last time I went to Scouts. I then joined drama groups and filmmaking courses, and my life took a very different turn, a much more enjoyable turn. And of course, in drama groups, there are girls. However, that's not a review of The Visitation. The Visitation is a 4-part story. A story that was originally released on DVD in 2003, so the chances are you may already own it. And what's it about? Well, it's the full TARDIS. It's Tegan. It's Nyssa. It's Adric. It's 1666. And it's the time of the Black Death ravaging England. Into this rather lovely little surroundings, you've got a crashed spaceship, you've got androids, you've got some adequately realised aliens in the form of the pteroleptils, and you've got a nice what exactly is going on. Like the Time Monster, the aliens arrive and disrupt local goings-on. Unlike the Time Monster, plague is rife. People are more likely to believe in what we see as superstition, but it still doesn't save them from being killed by an android. The pteroleptils are cleverer than usual aliens. They are geneticists, they are android builders, they are aware of the social hierarchy of a planet. If anything, the only thing that distracts is that the costume appears to be clumsy and slow. They are one-shot monsters, similar in many respects to the Zygons, but you can't see them coming back for this 50th anniversary. Poor old things. So the plot is fairly linear. Arrival, investigation, capture, discovery, escape, confrontation, defeat. It's a standard Doctor Who pattern. But the characterisation of various people just give it that twinge. The guy who played Fred Elliott in Coronation Street takes on a small but incredibly good part. I met him once while I was working in Waterstones in Manchester, and I'd said to him, "You know, we had a Fred Elliott evening the other day," and he looked at me like the way that people look at me, and he said, "What?" I said, "Well, we watched Visitation, and we watched the episode of Blake 7 you were in, and we watched Waterloo," and he looked at me and went, "What?" "And we'd watched Coronation Street as well." He said, "Are you some sort of club?" I went, "No, we just fancied having a Fred Elliott evening." He thanked me, stared at me and walked away, and that was fair enough. He also said people only remember that kind of stuff, which made me a bit sad, because that kind of stuff still requires a decent performance, and this guy can pull it off and do some seriously good stuff. But enough about me reminiscing. What you need to know is why you should buy this. And of course, you may already own it, so the answer lies, as always, with the extras. Now, the original release had, quite famously, a commentary track, done with most of the original regulars. And on this commentary track, Janet Fielding can be heard talking about her hair for almost an hour. Oh yes, it's rock and roll on these early commentaries. But now, thanks to the way things have moved on, we have a whole extra disc crammed packed full of goodies. The making of, in this case, is a particular gem, because Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, Sarah Sutton, and rather surprisingly, Mark Strickson revisit the Visitation's locations. Janet's looking well, Peter looks perfectly fine as a Fifth Doctor, Sarah's the same. Mark, however, seems out of place. Now I know this is the crew that I've been enjoying on Big Finish of late, so I'm very happy with that. But Mark here is not replacing Adric and isn't some sort of booking error. No, he's acting more as a chairman, someone to ask the questions to encourage the others to talk. Mark also has an excellent voiceover voice. He really should be doing more commercials. Other contributions from the guy who played, well, the Pterolepto, and the costume designer, and of course the producer, all pitch in. Then there's of course the nice little documentary, The Television Centre of the Universe, where Yvette Fielding takes over from Mark Strickson and gives Davison and his friends a guide around TV Centre with a trip down memory lane. And there's no shortage of people reminiscing about the history of the, well, closed studios. It's much more personal than the stuff you've seen recently. But of course, the highlight of this and most of the recent discs of late has been Doctor Forever. This time they tried to go through, well, everything from the 1970s sound effects LP via Genesis of the Daleks, the Pescatons, and then right through Big Finish. And there's a lovely revelation where you find out that Russell T Davies, who is of course a massive Big Finish fan, claims and indeed is responsible for the saving of Big Finish. Because at one point, one meeting, one of the other execs went, "This Big Finish licence," and Russell just picked up the paperwork and went, "Leave it with me, I'll sort it," and just left it at that. Because if the guy had known what he had in his hand, Big Finish might have lost their licence, and all hell would have broken loose, well, in my head anyway. Russell also says that Nick Briggs would have made a fantastic writer for the TV series. Is this a hint? I suspect so. Give the guy a job, come on, give him a story to write on telly. You know he can do it. But then again, is he holding out for the role of the Doctor? I'm not sure. Some people out there have said we could never have a bald Doctor. But you know what? Paul McGann's wig hasn't worked since 1996. Perhaps it and Briggs could get together for one final blast at being the umpteenth Doctor. Because are you going to call the next Doctor the 12th? Or the 13th? Just in order to make things match chronology. I'm recording this way out of whack, so by the time you hear this, there's probably been a new Doctor announced, and all of that was pointless. So with that, I will fade away and speak to you all very soon about Doctor Who. Be seeing you. On Saturday the 31st of August 2013, Hooverville 5 will happen. Located in Derby's The Quad, that's in the Cathedral Quarter, one of the best Doctor Who conventions in the UK will happen. Small scale, yes. Intimate, yes. A damn good laugh, most certainly. As well as the obligatory podcasters, this year's guests will include Graham Harper, Simon Fisher-Becker, Kevin Davies, and Alec Wills. More guests are sure to be announced very shortly. For more information, check out thehoovers.org.uk, and to buy tickets, visit derbyquad.co.uk. That's derbyquad.co.uk for more information. And if you're attending, be seeing you. You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its connected properties are copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. Whostrology, a Time Traveller's Almanac, is available through Telos Publishing or Amazon. Visit www.whostrology.com for further information. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.